I'm going to call Carol Beaumont.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And yes, you did. And I was hoping that the other speaker would have still been in the chair, Mr. Speaker, not from any disrespect for you, but because I was going to acknowledge, of course, as others have, Ross Robertson's election to the Papitoetoe subdivision of the Otara Papitoetoe Local Board, representing Team Papitoetoe. And I know that Ross will be a very hard-working and determined representative of his local community. So just wanting to acknowledge that as I rise to speak in support of the Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill Number 2, which I've spoken on in every stage of this bill going through the House, and as many of us will now know, this is a very narrow bill, quite a technical bill really, that fixes what was probably a mistake, certainly in the rush to pass the Auckland legislation, the Super City legislation, the ability of local boards to be able to delegate responsibilities, duties and powers confirmed or allocated to them under the Act was a transitional arrangement with a limited life, and that life is due to expire at the end of October if we don't pass this legislation. And of course, obviously it is important that we do so, and I think every party in the House recognises the need to ensure that local boards can in fact continue to delegate responsibilities, duties and powers as they currently are able to. And what the bill does is it says the things that they can delegate and the things that they cannot. And it is important because the local boards, as others have said, have started to take shape really. Their role has become an important part of local government in Auckland, and it is a co-governance arrangement between the local boards and the governing body. And that is important. It's fair to say that local boards play different roles throughout Auckland, and that may well be appropriate. It's also fair to say that some have been more active than others and probably better advocates for their community than others, and it's probably also fair to say that many local residents still probably don't fully understand the extent of the powers and responsibilities that their local board has, and how important it is and how different it is from the former community boards. So this bill is important to allow those important parts of our local government structure in Auckland to get on and do their job. And of course, they're elected to do quite a large job. The areas that they cover are not insignificant. They are larger than most units of local government throughout New Zealand. And I think that's important. So when we talk about local boards, for people outside of Auckland, they may not realise just what large areas these boards and how many people they are actually working for. Now, of course, we've just had the local government elections, and I want to acknowledge everybody who stood in the local government elections throughout New Zealand. It is always a big thing to do, to put yourself forward as a candidate, to go out there and to talk about what you stand for, and to seek a mandate from the public. And so many people throughout New Zealand did put their hat in the ring, and of course we now know who has been successful. And in terms of the local boards in Auckland, my colleague Phil Twyford spent some time talking about what's happened with the local boards, but it is fair to say, from this side of the House, a very pleasing result really, a positive outcome for the centre-left in terms of local boards, with some very strong tickets and some very effective people elected. And in my own area, I'm a list MP based in Maungakiekia, and in our area we have two subdivisions, the Maungakiekia one and the Tamaki subdivision. We've got 3 community independents elected in Maungakiekia: Brent Clark, Bridget Graham, Simon Randall, and in the Tamaki subdivision, Josephine Bartley, Chris McCorry, Alan Verrill and Obid Yunasa, all of whom the latter 4 stood as Labour candidates for that board. And across Auckland, there are some very, very strong candidates, some who are returning for a second term as local board members, and some new and exciting people coming into the local board roles. Now, it is fair to say that the role does need further definition, and as I said earlier, there is greater understanding required from the public about the role of local boards, what they can and can't do, the extent of their powers. And AUT research, the Super City State of Auckland research indicates exactly that they say that while the Super City is functioning well in many areas, we are still seeing a lack of clarity about the roles of the council as governing body and the local boards. So there is still some issues there. I also want to note from that same report that there was, one of the findings was that there were too few Māori, Pacific and ethnic peoples and younger adults holding elected positions on the council and the local boards, and women urgently need stronger representation on council-controlled organisations. Well, can I say that one of the really positive things about this election for local board representation in Auckland has been the large number of new Pacific representatives we have on local boards in the Auckland area. It's a very, very positive outcome, and an even larger group, of course, who stood, some of whom were not successful. But I think, and I can see others across the House nodding, that this is a very positive thing, because we want local government to reflect the community that they represent. And I'm sure that's hysterically funny for the Minister. I don't quite know why it's so funny. But anyway, let's not divert onto that. So, local boards. In my own area, the local board has done a number of very positive things, and they have included what you might call environmental projects, music and arts centre, they've funded community events, improved the local mall, worked with sports groups in terms of the sports facilities they've had. But the one I want to particularly pick up on is the housing issue. And they have worked very hard on the idea of a housing warrant of fitness. Now, there are many renters in the Maungakiekie Tamaki local board area, and they have a rental housing quality project to improve housing quality in rental properties in our area by working with stakeholders to explore options to achieve positive housing outcomes for tenants, particularly those in areas of higher deprivation. And this warrant of fitness scheme will be the first of its kind in the country, and is a joint project between Environmental Services and Community Development. And I want to applaud our local board for that. And can I say that it's in a context of a housing crisis in Auckland, something that my colleague Phil Twyford, I think, has been doing a very good job of holding the government to account for. There is a housing crisis in Auckland. Home ownership is out of reach of most New Zealanders, and that, of course, is contrary to what the local Member of Parliament in Maungakiekie thinks, because he thought that actually $130,000 for a housing deposit, that's $130,000, was not out of reach of most Aucklanders. Well, of course, he got rubbished up and down the country for that one, because, as we all know, that is an extremely large amount of money. He also talked about, I think it was 1,100 affordable houses in the Maungakiekie electorate, which of course there is no such thing. And in fact, the electorate is actually probably one of the ones where housing prices are going up the most strongly. So housing is a real issue in our area, and I do want to applaud our local board for working on the housing warrant of fitness issue. And I would say that the government needs to recognise, and I think they probably do, starting to get the message that people are very concerned about housing issues in Auckland. Housing affordability, access to decent quality rental accommodation are two absolutely fundamental issues. Of course, another important issue is public transport, and these are issues that certainly on this side of the House we take very seriously. So, as I draw my comments to a conclusion, just to again reiterate, we do support this bill. It is necessary to ensure that the local boards can fulfil their function. I just want to make one final comment for the record about the local government elections, and that is to acknowledge the contribution of the former councillor in the Mangakeke area, and that's Richard Northey, who has done an exceptional job, who's worked very hard with our local board. Thank you.
Before I call the next member, can I just ask some of the conversations, just if you can just make them a little bit quieter, please, because it's quite distracting. Calling Denise Roach.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take the call for the Greens on the local government Auckland Council number 2.